It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
And the phone number, as always, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Last night for me, filling in for Gary and Eric. They return Sunday night, Monday morning. Always appreciate the opportunity to fill in on Red Eye Radio. It has been a night of incredible drama in Washington, D.C., as the House, mainly the Republicans, of course, have been trying to begin the debate on the big, beautiful bill. And I believe that debate clearly has stalled. I want to welcome on into the program Tennessee Congressman Scott Desjarlais is joining us here on Red Eye Radio. Congressman, you are a regular on my local show in Nashville, Tennessee, and I appreciate you joining us here on Red Eye Radio on the network. So I've got to ask, I mean, I've been watching this unfold all night. There was supposed to be a vote this evening, and basically the vote was to move forward to the actual debate of the big, beautiful bill. But the breaking news right now is that we are hours in and still we can't get to where we can move forward. There are apparently 5 Republicans who are voting no to move forward with this debate, and 8 that have actually not yet voted at all. So I guess the question is, Congressman, how grim does this look from your perspective?
Well, it's been interesting, that's for sure. The whip's office seemed pretty confident around 8 o'clock that the votes were there to get this rule passed, and then we're going to go on and debate the bill, of course, and negotiations were going on. We knew that. There was a few people that had some issues. I didn't think there was going to be this many. I figured it was 3 or 4. But as you stated, we got 5 voting no right now and 8 not voting. So just kind of like in the Senate, I guess everybody feels like they have a little bit of leverage right now with the president or with the speaker, and they're trying to get something either for themselves, their districts, or something else. But it's a game that's been played in Washington for a long time. Just didn't expect it to go down the way it's going down right now.
Well, I was going to ask, Congressman, are you surprised with how it went tonight? Because I think that not even to be able to get to the point of debate, I think I'm a little surprised. So that's number one. And number two, can you explain to me the 8 that have not yet voted? Like, are they not required to vote?
No, I would hate to be somebody that was so indecisive that I couldn't vote yes, no, or at the very least present, because even if you don't like this bill, if you're on Team Republican and you want to, maybe you have some things you don't like. Whenever you do a big bill, I don't care whose it is, whether it's George Bush, whether it's Obama, whether it's Trump in his first term or Biden. Whenever you do these $1 trillion bills, there's always things in there you don't like. And so, you kind of got to go Ronald Reagan and say, 80% of a loaf is better than no loaf. There's things in here I don't like. But frankly, Congress is kind of paralyzed until we get this done. And there's a lot of misinformation being thrown out there about what it's going to do to people on Medicaid and SNAP and other things. And so, the megaphones are out. People are, the Democratic side are trashing this thing. It's hard to have the same airtime because mainstream media and whatnot doesn't cover it from a conservative perspective. So, I think people really don't know what to think about it. But the bottom line is they elected Trump to do something different. And in this bill, we have the border security, we have energy security, the Trump tax cuts, even though they say it's just for billionaires, it impacts you, it impacts me, it impacts most Americans. And so there's a lot of good things in this bill, and that's what people voted for President Trump for. And in my district back in Tennessee, as you said, we talk on the radio quite a bit. People voted for me, but they voted for Trump in the same amount, and I think they care more about what the president does than what one single House member does. And I feel like, you got to be backing the president. So these 8 people who are not voting are going to have to vote at some point one way or another. Now, if they vote president, we only need 213 votes to win this thing against 212 if everyone else decides to vote present. So I don't know what the game is. I'll guarantee the president's been involved. He's been talking to a number of these people. I don't know if it's local issues for them or national issues, but yeah, the sheer number is surprising me because you saw earlier we had a procedural vote called the previous question. It passed 214 to 212, which means 6 Republicans didn't vote on that. Now, 2 people were kind of delayed getting in here due to travel issues, but they're all here now. And then, the next vote they left open forever, and that was just an amendment to the rule bill, and that finally passed 220 to 212, which was all Republicans and 212 Democrats. And so, yeah, I did not expect this. I thought there was 4 people holding out, and they were going to negotiate, try to get whatever it is they were trying to get. Apparently, they've been joined by a band of merry men who are working on something else that I'm not sure what it is.
So what is the state? Congressman Scott Desjarlais out of Tennessee is joining us here on Red Eye Radio. And what is the state of play right now? I know that, I think that the Democrats have already left. I know some Republicans are going back to wherever they stay, townhomes or hotels or whatever it is. Yeah. So what is going on right now?
We're not getting any word, which is a little frustrating because, usually the whip's office, I feel bad for Democrats and Republicans because just general lack of information. I'm only about 10 minutes from the floor, so if they somehow get this rule bill passed and then they have to go into the hour-plus debate on the bill itself, I know Hakeem Jeffries promised to do a magic minute that was going to last at least an hour. So for some reason, if they have some breakthrough, and I know they were trying to get maybe Trump to agree to certain executive orders or other things that would, codify some of the changes that were made in the Senate that, that he could undo with executive order or promises for later legislation. If those were made, then, they will go ahead and give their votes and we'll move forward. So if that were to somehow happen here in the next 15 minutes, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, in theory, they could flip those votes and pass the rule and then start debate on the big, beautiful bill. But that's going to take at least an hour or more. And then, as you said, people have wandered off. And so I'm sure that I think they had one vote open for over 7 hours tonight, and that was some kind of record. So I promise they'll leave the bill open and let everyone who needs to vote have time to get back and vote. But honestly, I'd be surprised if anything happens before noon tomorrow at this point, and it's possible that we'll go home for the weekend and go to some kind of plan B and renegotiate this thing. It could still be split up into 2 parts, like several people had originally wanted. But in my opinion, we're this close. It's not perfect, but it's what the people voted for. We need to get it done. We need to move on. We've got other legislative issues we need to do. I need to do a defense authorization bill in armed services. We need to do a farm bill in agriculture, and every other committee has work to do. So we need to get this behind us, and I hope we do that sooner rather than later, and ideally, sometime tomorrow.
Real quick, because I know you have other things going on. What is the mood in the room, if you will, within the Republican Party? And a lot of you obviously want to move forward. Is it anger? Is it exhaustion? How would you describe it?
Well, I think it's frustration just over the lack of teamwork because, we've had situations before where we're in the majority and we had a larger margin. And if you've got a 30-vote margin, there's people that, just really have issues with a bill and they need to vote their district. Right now, that's not where we're at. We have a slim margin. We got to vote our country. We can't just vote our district. And so I think there's frustration with a handful of holdouts that are trying to get something that they think is better than what, we put together between the House and the Senate, that they somehow think they've got a better idea that can get 218 votes or whatever the requisite votes are. We push it through the House. They barely push it through the Senate. And, who's the genius out there that has the perfect bill that's going to get the requisite votes? And so I think, sometimes you got to play with the team and you don't get maybe the call you wanted, but it's close enough, and you got to go with your coach or your quarterback, and that's Trump. And so I think that there's frustration in general that a few people think that they're smarter than everybody else and that their ideas are better than everyone else's when, we've come this far. And, again, there's things in there people don't like. I have constituents calling me saying, hey, this, I don't like this part. I don't like that part. But I promise they're not going to get the perfect bill that can pass. And so, I think the general mood is, come on, guys, let's get together. Let's finish this and let's move on and get good things done. That people voted for Trump to bring change to America, and he's already doing that. The border, in my opinion, is almost already secure. The military is stronger. We just had in my opinion, a great success against Iran, and we got to keep the momentum going. We got to bring the industry back to the United States. We got to grow jobs. We got to get more people pulling the wagon and sitting in it, and that's a lot of that happens in this bill. And frankly, we're kind of a spoiled country, in my opinion, and we've got to get back to the ethic of working for a living. People that are able-bodied that can work should work, and we don't need to be spending our tax dollars supporting people who are in the country illegally. And a lot of the complaints you're hearing from the Democrats is, you're cutting Medicaid, you're cutting SNAP, you're cutting benefits. So I think most Americans paying taxes don't mind helping other Americans in need, but I don't think they appreciate spending their tax dollars on people that aren't even citizens here. So I don't really understand it, the perspective of some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, but I certainly don't understand why people on my side of the aisle can't come together and get this done. Well,
Congressman, you can give me a yes or no if you want to do a prediction. Do you think this is going to get done by the 4th of July?
You
can say maybe. You can say maybe if you need to.
I would love to say yes. I'll probably say maybe right now. You can ask me in about ask me tomorrow. But everyone seems pretty confident that we're going to get there, and these holdouts that are trying to get whatever it is they're going to get are going to start feeling a heck of a lot of heat. I wish you could have some of them on the show and explain what they're doing and why they're doing it, because I can't speak for them. But, I think the general mood in the conference is, yes, we're going to get this done. Is it going to get done by the 4th of July? I don't know. I'll just add one more thing. I know there's members in here that say, it's like buying a used car. The dealer says, if you don't buy this today, it's going to be gone. And they say, no, I can walk away. It's still going to be here when I come back. And so I think they have that negotiating strategy that, we can walk away from this. It's still going to be here tomorrow. It's still going to be here the next day. But, we're going to fight to, make it the very best we can. And so I know some people look at it that way, and maybe they're right. But I do think we're going to get there.
All right, Congressman Scott Desjarlais out of the great state of Tennessee, thank you very much for the update, and I hope you're able to get some sleep tonight. And the phone number here on Red Eye Radio is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. It's interesting in having the conversation with Congressman Desjarlais because I've got some audio, and I don't have time to play it right now. Let me play one audio bite for you. This is Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul. And he's talking about why it is that he is opposed to Donald Trump and the Republicans' big, beautiful bill. This is Rand Paul. He was speaking from the Senate floor.
In deciding whether to vote for the big, not-so-beautiful bill, I've asked a very specific question. Will the deficit be more or less next year? The answer, without question, is this bill will grow the deficit. The federal government has fancy formulas and hundreds of wonky accountants who inform us of their projections over 10 years. But you often can't trust these projections.
Well, and I guess then the question is, if you can't trust the projections, then why is Rand Paul trusting the projections of the CBO when they say that this will add trillions to the deficit? But I think the bigger issue is this. The bigger issue that some of these folks who are naysayers are going to have is that you talk about the debt, you talk about the deficit, and I get that. I totally understand that. I consider myself, a political junkie. I don't know if I'm really wonky, but I love this stuff. But when you're talking to folks across the country and they're hurting, and they are struggling to pay the rent, they're struggling to pay the mortgage, they're struggling to make the car payment. And you have the vast majority of Republicans in your party and the President of the United States who was voted in, won the battleground states, very popular president among Republicans. And he wants to give the American people, and they want to give the American people, tax cuts, extending those tax cuts to make them permanent as well. Child tax credits, that is going to go up. The Trump accounts where newborn kids get $1,000. No taxes on tips and overtime. I mean, I could keep going on. Y'all know the talking points. People need help. And so sometimes when you hear some of these Republican senators and some of these other naysayers on the big, beautiful bill, and they start talking about these concepts of, the debt and the deficit, I think people are worried about their own debt and their own deficit in their own lives financially. And so I think that there's a lot of folks out there that are saying that if this doesn't work, if the Republicans are not able to pass this, then they will lose the House of Representatives coming up in the midterm elections. There is a lot more to talk about. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. My name is Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
Hi there, this is Hope Zavara with Mother Trucker Yoga. And here's your health tip of the day. Healthy driver, healthy diesel, powered by House. Truck drivers are at high risk for carpal tunnel and grip issues from long hours at the wheel, leading to pain, stiffness, and weakness over time. Let's fix that right at the wheel. Using your steering wheel, stretch one finger at a time, starting from your thumb to your pinky. Hold each of those for 10 seconds. Then place all 4 fingers on the wheel and gently press and stretch your palm and wrist. Hold for another 10 seconds. Don't forget to do the other hand. Do this 2 to 3 times a day to keep your hands mobile, strong, and ready for action. There you go. Small, simple changes that can lead to big results so you can feel good again. Visit mothertruckeryoga.com and houseproducts.com for more tips and support.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, the phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. By the way, just to let you know, it is July 3rd, and we are live this morning. I know a lot of radio shows are on tape or what have you here in the week of the 4th of July weekend, but we are live, and we are monitoring everything that is going on in Washington, D.C. as the House of Representatives, they debate the big, beautiful bill. And President Trump, man, he has been on fire on Truth Social. So coming up, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to play for you, read to you some of what the president has had to say this evening. And also I'll play you more audio from Rand Paul. One of the things that I've noticed, and this is, I was speaking to Congressman Scott Desjarlais just a few moments ago, as he is in Washington, D.C., and he's been watching all of this firsthand and, of course, in real time. And one of the things that he said, and it is true, is that there's a lot of things in this bill that people like. And I think that there's some polling out there that shows that this is a very, in fact, I think I saw the term, a deeply unpopular bill. And I'm not understanding as to why anyone would think that this bill is deeply unpopular. Because when you go through what is in this bill, it's all good. And it's all for the American people. I understand that you do have some folks that are saying, well, you're going to have millions cut off Medicaid and, all of the other things that the Democrats and some Republicans say. And I understand that. But when you look at the totality of this bill, there is a lot here for the American people.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
The phone number remains 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. I want to do something a little different tonight. I host a radio show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I host a morning show, and at WTN, we have what we affectionately call the text line. And I've got it open, so nationwide, wherever you are, wherever you're listening, if you don't want to call, if you can't call for whatever reason at 866-90-RED-EYE, you can actually text the show tonight only. And I'm monitoring the text messages, so if you've got something to say, you can text in to 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986. It's kind of a unique broadcast here for Red Eye Radio because it doesn't really happen all that often, although sometimes does if there's something militarily going on. But we don't often have breaking news overnight, but we do right now, where, as the headline from Fox News is, Donald Trump's multi-trillion-dollar big beautiful bill stalls as fiscal hawks rebel. And that is what's going on. I just had, a little bit ago, a guy by the name of Scott Desjarlais. He is a congressman out of my state of Tennessee. And he and a lot of the other Republicans have finally said, because they've been waiting at the Capitol for hours. Do you know that this bill, and obviously it's gone back from the House to the Senate, now back to the House, but this vote today, it's not even the vote to approve the bill. The vote that they were waiting to take for hours was simply to allow the debate to happen. And they can't even agree on that. They've got 5 people. They've got 5 of these fiscal hawks who have said, no, we're not even going to allow this to go to debate. You've got 8 others who have decided, you know what? We're not even going to vote to take a vote. And so there's a lot of Republicans who are angry because they kind of wanted to get this done, if you know what I mean. And so now you do have the vast majority of the Democrats. They have left the building, and you now have Republicans who have also given up for the evening. And so we'll keep you updated. You can always follow me on Twitter as well, at Dan Mandis Show. I do want to play for you a piece of audio, and it's a great piece of audio because, number one, it's one of my favorite political commentators out there, Scott Jennings. And Scott, he is, of course, on CNN, and he is often, as Republicans like to say, owning the libs. But the reason I wanted to play it is because it backs up what I was saying in the previous segment, which is there's a lot of polling out there that will show, well, the big, beautiful bill, it is enormously unpopular. And I think that part of that is because of the media coverage. Because you just go through the talking points, you just go through what is in the big, beautiful bill. And by the way, I'm going to tell you that, like Congressman Scott Desjarlais, who I interviewed a little bit ago, I've got some misgivings about this bill. I absolutely do. I am worried about the debt. I am worried about the deficit, but I am also worried about my debt and my deficit. And yours too. And certainly the Trump tax cuts and everything that is in this piece of legislation will help. Will help our economy. And so Scott Jennings was asked the question, again, on CNN, about the popularity of Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. This is what he said. Scott Jennings on CNN.
I don't accept the projections on this, number one. Number two, it is not unpopular. It is not unpopular to invest in ICE. It is not unpopular to give this agency what it needs to deport violent criminals. It is not unpopular to make sure illegal aliens are not getting welfare. It is not unpopular to take able-bodied Americans who are not doing anything, who are choosing not to work. It's not unpopular to say, we're not paying for your welfare when we're asking everybody else to get up and go to work. These are popular provisions, as is no tax on tips, as is keeping the tax rates low. You keep talking about the popularity of the bill. Individual provisions are exactly how Trump won the national popular vote. It will work if they run the play.
But it's currently not working, and that's why you have 4 no votes currently happening, because
you don't know why they're voting no. You don't know what their motivations are, and they may flip.
They're voting no because they don't agree with the bill. They're voting no because
they may have individual questions. But the vast majority of the Republicans know this is the play the president has called.
They have had plenty of time to convince and to get their caucus in order.
Not that
to
much.
Vote
it
for
just
the
came
bill.
over from the Senate the other day.
And
all right, so that is Scott Jennings, and he is, of course, battling the liberals on CNN. But it is interesting because you do have, and let me look up the names. They are Congressman Self, Congressman Sparks, Congressman Clyde, and Congressman Fitzpatrick. Those are 4, and of course you've got Thomas Massey as well. So I believe those are the 5 holdouts, and so we're going to have to just monitor what happens not only this morning as you've got Mike Johnson and also the Majority Whip Steve Scalise. And if you don't know the Majority Whip, it is his job to whip people into voting for or against a particular piece of legislation. And so that's kind of where we are. President Donald Trump's massive spending bill is stuck in the House with more than expected opposition from the Republican Party. So now what's been happening over the last several hours is Donald Trump has been meeting with the holdouts. You've got phones that are ringing. Arms are being twisted. Threats of being primaried are going on because, that's how it works. But the holdouts, well, they're holding out.
It would grow the deficit by $750 billion. That's way too much to grow a deficit. We already have a debt and deficit problem. We shouldn't be adding to it.
All right, so that is Congressman Andy Harris. This is Congressman Chip Roy.
This bill, in my opinion, will raise the deficits in order to get some tax cuts that we want, some tax cuts that we don't necessarily need, some reforms that are good, but some reforms that we're leaving on the table. That's the bill. You say, well, is that a compromise? In my opinion, right now, it's not a compromise worth taking because the deficits are too high and we can't afford that anymore.
All right, so you've got most of these folks. They are financial hawks or fiscal hawks. So remember, there is a difference between being against the bill and being against moving to the debate stage. So we have a lot of these folks that are against the bill that may be for going to the debate stage, but we also have 5 that are against even going to the debate stage. And that's obviously a major issue for the Republicans. And so now Donald Trump, he is, fuming. I'm going to read some of his. As a matter of fact, what I need to do is I need to go to Truth Social right now and make sure that I have the president's Truth Social feed up, because as you can imagine, he has been a little frustrated. He says, Donald Trump, 57 minutes ago, he says, for Republicans, this should be an easy yes vote. Ridiculous, the president says. And then, of course, about an hour ago, just before he sent the one that I just sent, he says, largest tax cuts in history and a booming economy versus biggest tax increase in history and a failed economy. What are the Republicans waiting for? What are you trying to prove? MAGA is not happy, and it's costing you votes. That is part of what Donald Trump has been posting on Truth Social. So you keep hearing a lot about the disagreement on what this bill will do. Will it raise the debt? Will it raise the deficit or not? So Fox News, and this has been driving me nuts literally since day one, because you have all of these experts, and these people, quite frankly, they're a lot smarter than me. And they're all talking about, okay, it's going to raise the debt and the deficit. You got other people that are saying it's not going to raise the debt and the deficit. I just played you audio from 2 congressmen, Andy Harris and Chip Roy. I also earlier played you some audio from Senator Rand Paul, all saying that it would. Okay, well, Fox News had Russ Vodon. He is the director of the Office of Management and Budget under Donald Trump, and he's calling BS. This is what he had to say.
This is an incredible bill. It will lead to an incredible growth. It reduces, and let me be very clear, it reduces the deficit. When you have an honest assessment of what current law is, this is a reduction in deficits over 10 years, and it will lead to trillions of dollars of economic growth. The economic growth numbers that Congressman Harris is using is largely just a number that they came up with that they were comfortable with. We have done a rigorous economic analysis in which we believe that the average is much more like $4 trillion that will come as a result of just the regulatory provisions and just the tax provisions. So this is a great bill. It will lead to incredible economic growth that we're already seeing.
Right. So it's either going to lead us to financial peril or it's going to save our finances. And you see, that's the frustrating part. Now, remember, there's a lot going into all of this. There is the tax cuts. There is the equation that factors in the revenue generation from those tax cuts, because those tax cuts will bring in revenue. There's the other policy measures as well. It is one big, complicated bill. Here is more from the Director of the Office of Management and Budget under Donald Trump, Russ Vought. He also says,
and we're explaining all of the good things in this bill. If you were to take any one of the provisions in this bill and spend about 2 months on it in the House and the Senate, this would be historic landmark legislation, each one. Instead, what the president has done is put them all together and used a procedural mechanism so that we could push it as much through in one package. Previous administrations talk about a 100-day agenda and you got to wait on Congress to pass these bills. We're doing it in one fell swoop, and as a result, there is so much to explain. All of it is good. We have no doubt that we're going to be able to go on offense on all of these things because they're things that the country has longed for decades. The president promised, and now we are keeping those promises.
Now, earlier I was telling you about, for tonight only, I have activated locally at my station, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, as I fill in for Gary and Eric. We have a text line where you can text in the show. So I've activated it here for the national audience. 615-737-9986. A lot of people chiming in from the state of Texas. One person, the last 4 digits, 3207, says Keith Self, the Republican there in Texas, is living up to his name tonight as a holdout. He says it is all about himself. Self is being selfish by placing his district above what is best for our country. He says we will not forget this, Keith. And so, again, a lot of other people chiming in. Let's see here. Another one says, you rhinos, this is out of Arizona, 6789. By the way, just so you know, I also read the ones that are critical of yours truly. So if you hate me, go ahead and knock yourself out. I actually tend to have fun with those. 6789 out of Arizona says, you rhinos drive me crazy. As a senior citizen, I've paid so many taxes all my life. Get it together so we seniors can have some sanity during our golden years. We don't have extra years to make up for your mistakes. Give us a break. We voted for Trump's agenda, not yours. So 6789 is very critical of those that are holdouts. So there's a lot of people, and it is interesting because the more that I hear, and I play the audio from Scott Jennings, the more that I hear some of these folks saying, oh, the polling on this is terrible. As Scott Jennings said, and as I said, look at all of these individual ideas that is in this bill. People are really worried about their finances, and people are asking for and demanding for more of their tax dollars back so that they can spend more money on their families. And so this Friday night in Washington, D.C., I got to tell you, it is absolutely one to watch. The phone lines are open, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. It does seem, by the way, because I've been texting back and forth with a lot of my Tennessee congressmen all evening long, there's been a lot of confusion as well, in that members originally were told that there would be no vote tonight, and then suddenly they were told to be down to the floor in 15 minutes. So there's been a lot of confusion. There's been a lot of anger. There's been a lot of frustration as well. Now, again, remember, part of this is there is just a lot in this bill. I'm going to be honest with you. I was against the one big, beautiful bill. I wanted this broken up into a couple of different bills. You know why I wanted that? And you folks that listen to me in Nashville, Tennessee know this. The reason I was so adamant about two different bills is because I knew that this would happen. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Follow me on X at Dan Mandis Show. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. And I'm sitting here reading about some of the turmoil that is going on at CNN. I cannot wait to share with you that story that is coming up. We also have a lot of illegal immigration that is in the news today as well. We are live. It is the morning of July 3rd, and if you want to call in and give your opinion on the breakdown of the debate over the big, beautiful bill, 866-90-RED-EYE. Got a lot more straight ahead.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
Phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Thank you very much for joining us. It is, just to let you know, July 3rd, and we are live on this Thursday morning. And it's a good thing, too, because there is a lot going on. The vote to begin debate Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill has been stalled, and this has been a big surprise for a lot of folks. When you look at the division that is going on right now within the Republican Party on this bill, where this was, as reported, this debate hasn't even started yet. They can't even get through the decision or the vote to begin the debate in the House of Representatives. And this was supposed to be a 5-minute conversation. Listen, everybody in the House of Representatives, here's the game plan. What we're going to do is we're going to take this quick 5-minute vote to begin the debate. And the Republicans, what a train wreck. The Republicans in the House of Representatives cannot even get there. We've got 5 naysayers, and we've got 8 that have decided that they're just not even going to vote. By the way, just to let you know, the Republicans could only lose 3. And they've got 5 that have voted no, and they've got 8 that have not voted. And so now you have, for folks that are just joining us, you have Mike Johnson and you have Steve Scalise, and they are, calling, they are having meetings. I'm sure Donald Trump is hitting the phones as well. From what I understand, my contacts in the House of Representatives, a lot of folks have gone home. Certainly the Democrats, who, by the way, the Democrats, they are absolutely laughing their you-know-what's off, because for them, this is all great. For them, they think that if this does not pass, and there are some people that are saying this, if the big, beautiful bill does not pass, then they automatically will end up getting the House, the majority in the House in the midterm elections. That's what the Democrats are saying. That's why the Democrats are working so hard to torpedo this legislation. And so I want to play a couple of sound bites for you. And by the way, Newt Gingrich is out there, and I've got this audio too. Newt Gingrich is out there saying that if this doesn't pass, then this is going to be political suicide for the Republican Party and for the Republicans in the House of Representatives. You see, this is why the Democrats, who they know that there is good stuff in this bill. I mean, they do. They know that there is good stuff in this bill, things that the American people absolutely want. But they're doing everything to throw shade on it. And by the way, there's plenty of shade for this bill, but they're doing everything they can to put pressure on the Republicans to vote no on this bill. because they know that if it's ultimately does not pass, then it'll be an embarrassment for Donald Trump. It'll be an embarrassment for the Republican Party as well. So, again, there is a lot going on with this bill. By the way, for tonight only, I host a show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am the morning host for that station in Nashville. We have a text line that we use every single day. I am activating it for tonight's broadcast on Red Eye Radio. I'm activating it for the network. So if you don't want to call in, then you can text me. I'm watching it right now. I've already heard from people in New Mexico and Oregon and Washington, D.C., and a lot of other places as well. That text number is 615-737-9986. Again, that is for tonight only. When I say there's a lot of shade to be thrown at this bill, what I mean is I'm going into this and I'm supportive of this bill being passed. I am. I've gone back and forth on this. Does it add to the debt and the deficit? Yeah, it does. However, when you look at what the plan is, if you look at what Trump and the Republicans want to do, they want to give more of your money back to you via the tax cuts. That will ultimately bring in more revenue because people will get that money back, more taxes, more tax dollars coming back to you. What that means is that people have more money to spend. That is revenue for the government through sales taxes. And so for Trump and the Republicans, what they're saying is, listen, we just want to give money back to the American people. That will bring us more revenue. And that is how they're justifying the expenditure on this bill. So there's a lot going on. Jim Jordan was asked about all of this. He was in an interview. I was able to capture some of it, the Ohio congressman. He, of course, is frustrated.
I don't know how it gets any better when you think about it. It was a 50-50 vote in the Senate. 2 of the 3 Republican senators who voted against it are more moderate members. How does it get more conservative? How do we save more money by going back a second time? I just don't see how that happens. This is probably as good as it's going to get, and it's a darn good piece of legislation for all the reasons we've talked about, primarily giving families more money and starting our economy on the growth path we need.
Yeah, I mean, you just heard him say that if you give people more of their money back, then what they're going to do is, they're going to spend it, and that will grow the economy. The crazy thing is the divide in the Republican Party, it actually feels pretty small. But you do have both conservative and, as you just heard Jim Jordan say, you've got both conservative and moderate Republicans having different issues with this bill. And somehow these two sides, they're going to have to come together.
Moderates want something here, conservatives want something there. Whatever differences exist in our party are pretty darn small compared to the differences between Republicans and the left, which now controls the other party. Remember, that's what we got to stop. If we don't stick together, where the left wants to take this nation is frightening. Every policy they have is backwards and wrong. The left is the party of, we're going to defund the police, not have a border, men against women in sports. I mean, every position they take is radical. That's why we have to stick together. And again, I think in the end, we will understand that. We will come together and get this done.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jim Jordan is right. And a lot of people texting in now at 615-737-9986 tonight only. This is from Ohio. Speaking of Ohio and Jim Jordan. These rhinos are going to lose the next primary due to Trump's influence. Absolutely disgusting behavior from these Republicans. He actually said another word, but I can't say it on the radio. 0018, and this is from the fine state of Virginia. No bill is ever perfect. Republicans as a whole can never understand that most of the loaf is better than nothing at all. Republicans are 250 plus selfish children who all put their own desires above what their constituents sent them to D.C. to do. They almost want to lose in 26 and 28 so that they can throw peanuts from the cheap seats. And on it goes. And I do believe that Jim Jordan is right. There is a lot good in this bill. There's also a lot of concerns. I was saying to someone, and then I'm going to get to your calls at 866-90-RED-EYE, but two things can be true. This bill can spend a lot of money, this bill could lead to a higher debt and a higher deficit. But could also be true. What could also be true is that the American people could desperately use these tax cuts. The American people could definitely use these tax cuts being made permanent. The child tax credits going up to $2,200 per child. The Trump accounts where newborn kids get $1,000. Certainly families could use that. No taxes on tips and overtime. Allowing senior citizens a tax deduction worth thousands of dollars, either $6,000 or $4,000, just depending on which chamber we're talking about. A higher standard deduction for everyone. Auto loan interest deduction for cars made in America. Business tax breaks, small business tax breaks to encourage investing and hiring. These are all really good things for the American people. The amazing thing to me is that these are all very conservative. I mean, we could argue about, the Trump accounts where newborn kids get $1,000. We could argue that. I'm actually not a fan of that. But here's the thing. All of these things that I just mentioned, I think are very conservative values. And so you've got both sides. You've got people that are for the bill that are saying that the other side are a bunch of rhinos. And then you've got the people that are against the bill calling the other side a bunch of rhinos. Bobby is in Nashville on Red Eye Radio. Bobby, thanks for calling in. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. As you know, we're right at $37 trillion in debt, right?
Oh, yeah, I know.
All right. You take $1 bills stacked on top of each other, and you go up just $1 trillion. How high do you think that is?
Oh, I don't know, Bobby, but I know what the point that you're making. The point that you're making is that this will add to it'll add to the debt and the deficit. I know that, Bobby. It's my concern.
$250 billion is a quarter of the way to the moon. A quarter. $4 trillion will be to the moon. We're $37 trillion. They have increased the the deficit on this bill.
$5 trillion.
To go another $5 trillion. That's to the moon and beyond. We just got our credit rating dropped.
Yeah.
You remember that a couple months ago?
I sure do.
Our credit rating, which means interest rates are going higher, which hurts the American people. And all this Green New Deal stuff they're funding, but it's only for 2 years. Yeah, Obamacare is still around. They ran on that also to get rid of it, and we still have it. They actually have amendments in here to improve Obamacare.
So Bobby, let me hey Bobby, let me ask you this though. Don't yell at me. I'm not the enemy. Let me ask you this: is that I just talked about, and again, I'm fully admitting there's a lot of problems in this bill. No bill is perfect, and trust me, I get that. I've been doing this a long time. But when we look at the tax cuts and the ways that they've devised to bring money back to the American people, therefore to grow the economy, does that hold any water with you at all?
Yes. Oh, I'm all fine with that. The problem I have with, like the last speaker we had of the Senate, yes, he funded everything. What did he always say? Oh, Republicans don't like sloppy. Every single thing Democrats put through when they were in power, he would come into power, running against it, and then fund every single bit of it, every single time.
Hey Bobby, hey Bobby. So let me ask you a question then. You know that if this doesn't pass, then your taxes are going to go up, right?
No, you can have a split bill and actually have that put up, and they can actually get that 60% took care of, get it off the table. The reason why they don't, because they know they wouldn't get their fluff put in after that. All the pork.
Right. Yeah, and Bobby, what I would say to that is you're right, which is why I actually wanted. You're listening in Nashville, Bobby. I don't know if you listen to me on WTN, but when this whole thing started, I wanted separate bills precisely for what you're talking about, and I do appreciate the call. Very quickly, I'm getting a lot of calls in. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE. Steve is in Ohio on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for taking my call. I'd like to point out that the last time they did the tax bill, it actually pushed my taxes up. And the reason I'm okay with them passing this bill is because I care about my country. I think overall it's for the better. And I'd like to urge them to look to the future, to the next election and the election after that and the election after that. They'll have plenty of opportunities to weed out a lot of these problems and a lot of the waste. And to tell you the truth, they're just acting like a pack of weasels, grandstanding and stuff. And it's really sad. And I'd urge them to, like I said, to look at the long run, to the future. I'm a truck driver. I'm just a little guy. I work for a company. When they did the last tax bill, they made it to where, I don't know why, but where I couldn't write off my travel expenses and stuff like that. But like I said, I'm all for it. I'm making sacrifices. They could make a few sacrifices and to look to the future.
Well, Steve, Steve, let me ask you, do you believe that it was a mistake to have everything in one bill?
From what I understood is that if it's all voted on separately, that they can't make changes with this bill. They can't have Democrats or whatever people tearing it apart once it's passed.
Well, what you can do is you can try to make it,
put it all together.
Well, Steve, what they can do is they can make amendments to it, and the whole vote-a-rama thing that they did in the Senate. So there are ways that they can, number one, yes, they can make amendments to it, and they can add things to it. They can also change it down the line, and that's part of what I'm going to talk about coming up next. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis here. This is Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Uncompensated detention at docks frustrates drivers of all stripes. If you're an owner-operator, you have at least some control over the matter. Make the subject a standard part of your rate and/or contract negotiations on the front end. You can use your own numbers to calculate an hourly rate to compensate for lost income opportunity, as well as fixed costs, which don't stop when the truck stops. Those two elements of a fair detention rate were deemed appropriate by most of Overdrive's audience almost a decade ago. We've used income, fixed costs, and miles average of our owner-operator business services from ATBS's clients to compute an average $64 an hour detention rate then. And 10 years later, the figure is $83 an hour. Use your own numbers to calculate your rate. A simple conversation with any broker or shipper or your carrier if you're leased about what you're putting in the rate might yield results you don't expect. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
@866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. So I'm seeing on X that Speaker Mike Johnson has just said that he does now have the votes to advance the big, beautiful bill. And this does come after he just met with Congressman Tim Burchett, Congressman Thomas Massey, and Congressman Spartz as well. So we'll have to see if there's anything official on that. I have not seen any audio or anything from the speaker himself, so we'll keep an eye on that. And I've been telling you all night, the Republicans and all the Democrats, a lot of the Democrats have gone home. I think probably all of the Democrats have gone home, some of the Republicans as well. So I will, again, keep you posted. The more that I hear, the more you will know. By the way, I'm in contact with Congressman Tim Burchett. He is out of Tennessee. He's out of East Tennessee. And so I'll let you know when I know if that meeting actually did happen. Real quickly, I want to say hello to Tony in Avon Lake, Ohio on Red Eye Radio. Tony, I've got about a minute. Go ahead.
I like your amendments, and Chip Roy on there to pass the bill as it is, and can add amendments and stuff like that. So,
and Tony, I appreciate it. I appreciate the call. We'll have to see what happens. Remember, by the way, that, and I meant to say this earlier, but the bill has, if they pass it, remember that it can still be changed. Every couple of years we have a new Congress, and every few years we have a new president sometimes. So this can still be changed down the road as well. So there's a lot of, what's the best way to put this? There's a lot of avenues that the Republicans can go through to get the changes that they need if they ultimately end up passing this by the 4th of July. We'll see what happens. Dan Mandis here on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
8690 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. So, monitoring the situation in Washington, D.C. with the big, beautiful bill. We signed on this morning, and a lot of the folks had gone home. A lot of the representatives had gone home because the Republicans simply did not have the votes. But now that has changed in the last few minutes with Chad Pergram, Fox News, and he is now confirming that Donald Trump has spoken to the holdouts by phone early this morning, and he is saying that Mike Johnson has the votes. He says we're about to get the votes right now. That was 17 minutes ago. 4 minutes ago, Fox News confirming that Trump did speak to the holdouts by phone, and they're saying now that they've got the votes and that they should have a vote, a final vote, by early morning on Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. We'll have to see what happens. But again, I am monitoring everything that is going on in Washington, D.C. I do want to play you some of this audio. Brandon Gill is a Republican out of Texas. By the way, real quickly, just for this morning only, I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We have a text line, and you can text into the radio program. For tonight only, I've gone ahead and activated that text line. It is 615-737-9986. If you can't get through on the phone lines and you feel more comfortable texting, you go right on ahead. And a lot of people are texting in. I'm getting notes from people in Ohio. I'm getting from people in Idaho as well, and just all over the country. 5134 says, and this is from Nebraska, maybe we need to rename the bill Save the Planet and Inflation Reduction Act to get the Democrats on board. Yeah, maybe that is what the Republicans need to do. A lot of people saying that they're actually embarrassed by the Republican Party this evening, this early July 3rd, because of the clear disorganization, and they're clearly not unified on this. Brandon Gill is out of the state of Texas, and this is
what we are saying is that if you are able-bodied and working age, you need to be either working or seeking work in order to receive Medicaid.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that the Republicans and the media has been saying, is that these nasty Republicans want to kick a bunch of folks off of Medicaid. Millions, they say, will be taken off of Medicaid.
That is common sense. In other words, if you're a 32-year-old guy, you cannot sit on your couch and smoke weed all day and expect taxpayers to fit your Medicaid bills. That's wrong. That's something the majority of Americans agree with Republicans on. We're also saying that if you're an illegal alien and you shouldn't be in this country to begin with, you should be deported, you shouldn't be getting taxpayer-subsidized Medicaid. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at expanding eligibility checks so that whenever somebody shouldn't be on Medicaid anymore, that we take them off. These are the common sense solutions that we're putting into this big, beautiful bill. And these are the things that Democrats are against.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Well, let's not forget that Democrats, when it comes to like things like Medicaid and so forth, The Democrats love for people to be dependent on the federal government. Let's just not forget that. That's number one. And number two, one of the pieces of ammunition, if you will, one of the bullets that the Democrats have had is that they keep trying to sell this as, well, this is a very unpopular bill. Well, some of the things inside the bill are actually very popular, including lowering the tax rate and, of course, making them permanent, the tax cuts from 2017 with Donald Trump, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. And I do believe that if you ask the average American, should people who are on Medicaid, if they are well enough and able-bodied enough to work, should they have to work? I guarantee you, I absolutely guarantee you, every American, unless they're ripping off the system, would say yes. People who are able-bodied should have to work. Absolutely. If they're on Medicaid. Now, here's the other part of that, is that it's 20 hours a week. That's all it is. 20 hours a week. But remember my message. Two things can be true. Actually, many things can be true. This bill can spend a lot of money, and there can still be a lot of things for the American people. This is Senator Rand Paul.
In deciding whether to vote for the big, not-so-beautiful bill, I've asked a very specific question. Will the deficit be more or less next year? The answer, without question, is this bill will grow the deficit. The federal government has fancy formulas and hundreds of wonky accountants who inform us of their projections over 10 years. But you often can't trust these projections.
Yeah, and that is always my issue with all things regarding Washington, D.C. You know, you've got a million different opinions and interpretations of what spending legislation will do. And it drives me bat crap crazy. Because you can have the same piece of legislation and no more than, 10 to 15 to 20 to 25 different interpretations as to what that spending legislation will do. And that's what Rand Paul is talking about. But here's my thing. If Rand Paul is talking about the CBO, and the CBO is saying that this will add up to $3.8 trillion over a decade, well, he himself is saying you can't necessarily trust the CBO or any of these things in Washington, D.C., any of these organizations in Washington, D.C. But here's what I know. What I know is the American people could definitely use those tax cuts.
Eric Schuler writes that for any projection of a 10-year budget to be accurate, the Congressional Budget Office has to assume that the law won't change for 10 years, even as most of the politicians that make the laws risk being replaced every 2 years, and all of them advocate for changes of one stripe or another. Schuler states that few in Washington will admit Congress has a knack for starting any proposed cuts in the later years, while letting spending run wild in the immediate future. Sometimes these predictions are off by $1 trillion or so because the economy grew more slowly or more quickly than anticipated.
Right. So, again, the CBO says this is going to add to the deficit up to $3.8 trillion over a decade. Others, by the way, have an issue with increasing the debt ceiling by several $1 trillion. And that's one of my issues with it. So I'm very conflicted, and just so you know, I'm very conflicted about this. Could I use the tax refunds, the higher tax refunds, the lower taxes? Absolutely, I could. Could I use a higher child tax credit? Absolutely, I could. Could the American people use no taxes on overtime and no taxes on tips? Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of good things in here. So in the House tonight, you have Steve Scalise, who is the majority whip, and of course Mike Johnson, again the speaker, and they have been working feverishly to flip some of these votes. There were 5 no votes to simply allow this big tax bill to go to this stage of a debate, the debate stage. And you had 8 that simply had not decided to vote at all. And so now the word is, and I've been telling you this, and I'm monitoring everything that I know to monitor, and Chad Pergram and others are reporting that Mike Johnson is now saying that he does have the votes, that whether it's Steve Scalise or Mike Johnson or Donald Trump, they have all been putting a high-pressure campaign on these holdouts. And now Chad Pergram is saying that Donald Trump did speak to the holdouts by phone this morning, and they are about to get the votes. And he is saying that there more than likely will be a final vote by early morning on Saturday. So we'll have to see. Well, no, if it's early morning, what is today? I'm sorry. Today's Thursday, July 3rd. So maybe they're going to get this done early. If they're going to get this done, if there's going to be a vote by early morning on July 3rd, then that would be a day early because Trump wanted this done by July 4th. And I apologize. When I work this shift, the overnight shift, it causes complications with knowing what day it is. Anyway, so in the House of Representatives tonight, a lot of pressure going on, big pressure campaign. Rand Paul was talking about why he is against this bill.
The bill increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. What does that mean? That is an admission that they know they aren't controlling the deficit. They know that the ensuing years will add trillions more. That doesn't sound at all conservative to me, and that's why I'm a no.
That is why Rand Paul is a no. And this is John in New Mexico on Red Eye Radio. Thanks for holding on, John.
Hey, Dan, thanks for taking my call. This is John from the communist state of New Mexico. I'd just like to say this to Rand Paul. By not passing this bill, are you going to lower the deficit? The fact is you're not going to lower the deficit. You need this money for a lot of reasons. I think the Democrats spent at least $1 trillion on illegals over the last 3 or 4 years, and you need the money for ICE to get the bad illegals out of the country, and the other ones need to show us that they're going to work and contribute. If you don't contribute to society, you're no good to society. You shouldn't be on Medicare. You shouldn't be getting freebies. You shouldn't be getting hotel rooms and credit cards and everything else they're giving these people. They want to be, they're Marxist, socialist, communists. And so you have two choices here. Vote for this bill and stick with Trump. You always bet on Trump because Trump always wins, or you give the country over to the Democrats, which nobody should be doing.
No, and you bring up a great point, John. I don't know if you listened last night, but I was talking about
I always listen, Dan.
Well, awesome,
I always
thank
listened.
you.
I love you guys.
Well, then you probably heard when we spoke about, I talked about that polling and that research that shows that people who go against Donald Trump always lose. And so you brought up a great point. The point that you made is a really good one, which is, okay, so if they're unable to get this done, if the Republicans are unable to get this done, then you are absolutely handing the House of Representatives over to the Democrats in the midterm elections. If that happens, you hit the nail on the head, then we know what the Democrats are capable of. By the way, if you're a Donald Trump supporter and you want Donald Trump to face impeachment again in the last 2 years of his administration, why don't you just go ahead and hand the Democrats the House of Representatives? If you want everything that Donald Trump stands for and everything that Donald Trump wants to do, if you want all of that to come to an end, you just go right on ahead and block this bill, because that is exactly what is going to happen. Because if they vote no, if they're not able to get this across the goal line, then taxes are going to go up. And Rand Paul and people like Rand Paul, even if this thing does fail, then how do we, what is their plan? What is this would be my question. Rand Paul, what is your question then, or your solution to bring down the deficit? What is it? What is your solution to bringing it down? Because the Republicans will tell you, Donald Trump will tell you, Mike Johnson will tell you, a lot of the Republicans who are voting for this bill will tell you that their plan is to grow the economy by lowering the taxes so that people will spend more, and that grows the economy and the federal government gets more through sales taxes. That is, and by the way, also don't forget that what is also in this bill is help for small businesses. So the small businesses, they've got all kinds of tax breaks in there to encourage investing, to encourage hiring as well. That is also going to help grow the economy. Auto loan interest deduction for cars made in America. Let's also not forget about that. A higher standard deduction for literally everyone. And for senior citizens, a tax deduction worth thousands of dollars, $6,000 or $4,000, depending on which chamber we're talking about. So the Republicans do have a plan. And by the way, I need to let you know that I am a huge admirer of Rand Paul. But what is his solution? The Republicans have a solution. The Republicans are telling you, allow us to cut taxes. Allow us to further lower taxes and make them permanent and see what happens when we take steps to grow the economy. That's what needs to happen. 866-90-RED-EYE. We'll return next.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Radio 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. 866-907-3339. Things seem to be going a mile a minute as far as what is happening in Washington, D.C. It does look like they are going to have a vote by the early morning hours on Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. I'll continue to keep you updated. By the way, it is July 3rd, early morning of July 3rd. We are live. A lot of other shows are on tape. We are live this morning monitoring everything going on in Washington, D.C. And you can call in. Phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. We have also activated the super text line from my home station here in Nashville, Tennessee. You want to text into the show tonight only, 615-737-9986.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339, and it is July 3rd. We are live, and man, there is a lot going on in Washington, D.C. with the big, beautiful bill. If you are just joining us, I will tell you that there has been a momentum shift. You know, I came on the air a couple of hours ago here on Red Eye Radio, and it looked dead. It looked like the big, beautiful bill, the vote wasn't going to happen, and the whole thing was going to be a bust. But then, just a little bit ago, the Republicans were able to pull it together. You had Mike Johnson. He was, talking to a lot of folks. The president himself was hitting the phones and trying to twist a lot of arms, because here's the thing that's going on. Is you had 5 of these Republicans who said, no, we are not going to vote even to have the debate. And you had 8 people who, 8 representatives who said, no, we're not going to even vote on this. And just the whole thing looked dead in the water. The big, beautiful bill looked like it was dead in the water. But now we are hearing that it does look like the Republicans, Mike Johnson is saying, and Chad Pergram is reporting, as well as a number of other reporters, too, from Fox News, that they've got the votes. And this just happened here in the last few minutes, where they say that they've got the votes, and they are expecting to have a vote here in the next several hours. I think part of what's going on is that some of these representatives may have actually flown home. I think that's what I'm seeing, that some of these folks have actually now decided to fly home. And so now what they're doing is they're waiting for some of them to come back. Let's see here. I'm on Chad Pergram's Twitter feed, X feed. Multiple sources say GOP Pennsylvania Representative Scott Perry went home to Pennsylvania. They are waiting for him to return. The holdouts are unwilling to vote until he gets back. Then he says they will vote as a bloc. He also says that Donald Trump spoke to the holdouts by phone early this morning, and they are reporting that they do have the votes. And so quite a stunning turnaround. I spoke to, earlier in the broadcast, I spoke to, I host a show out of Nashville, Tennessee, and I spoke to one of my congressmen that I speak to locally, and he didn't sound hopeful. He didn't sound positive that this thing was going to pass. But if they're able to have this vote here, as Chad Pergram and others are now saying, that the Republicans may be taking this vote in the early morning hours, probably maybe in the next 5 or 6 hours, then it could be done before July 4th, before the deadline imposed by Donald Trump, which was July 4th. It would be July 3rd. So it's just been a really interesting evening, and we'll continue to watch what happens on Capitol Hill. And we've had just a wide array of opinions on Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. The phone lines are open at 866-90-RED-I, 866-907-3339. Tonight only, we have activated the super text line, the text line that I use for my local show. So if you want to text into the show tonight only, as I fill in, it is 615-737-9986. And I'm getting a lot of people chiming in as well from all over the country. I'll get to some of those here in a little bit. So there is a lot going on. We do have audio from the holdouts, a couple of folks like, for example, Andy Harris. He is among the handful who have been saying that really the cost of this bill, the big, beautiful bill, is just too high.
It would grow the deficit by $750 billion. That's way too much to grow a deficit. We already have a debt and deficit problem. We shouldn't be adding to it.
All right. And this is Andy Harris. That was Andy Harris. This is Chip Roy out of Texas.
This bill, in my opinion, will raise the deficits in order to get some tax cuts that we want, some tax cuts that we don't necessarily need, some reforms that are good, but some reforms that we're leaving on the table. That's the bill. You say, well, is that a compromise? In my opinion, right now, it's not a compromise worth taking because the deficits are too high and we can't afford that anymore.
So one of the things, and my question would be this, and just so you know, I am for this bill. It's not my job to convince you that it's a good bill or a bad bill. I'm just telling you my opinion. I am for this bill, but I do have a lot of misgivings. So my question would be this to Chip Roy or Andy Harris or Andy Biggs, Lauren Boebert, Dan Muser, Andy Ogles out of Tennessee, Scott Perry, Thomas Massey, certainly, and others. And that is, if you have suddenly flipped, then what changed? What did you get to flip your vote? That's what I would ask. Because they seem, and been playing the audio, I've been watching all of this play out, they were really hardcore. No, I'm not going to vote for it. No, I'm not going to vote for it. It's going to raise the deficit. It's going to raise the deficit. You know, did they just now realize that what actually would happen is when you give all of that tax money back to the American people and they in turn spend it, that in turn grows the economy. When you give businesses the tax breaks that they need to invest in their company, to do research and to hire people, that also grows the economy. It grows the job market as well. Did they suddenly just realize that? Or is it true that when Donald Trump says that these folks are grandstanders, and they won a personal call from President Trump? There was an article, and I thought it was interesting. Was it in The Hill? I can't remember now, but there was an article that I read a little bit ago where the accusation was that some of these folks, they just want a call from the president. Some of these folks they like the drama. They like being, part of the news cycle. And so maybe there are some of these people that just like to be grandstanders. I mean, I certainly hope that's not true, but it wouldn't surprise me, because my question, honest question would be, what possibly could have changed to make you flip your vote? What did you get to make you flip your vote? Because I think that's really interesting. Because this debate, this argument has been going on for months and months. So you've got all these folks on the right, some of these folks on the right, and all these people on the left who have been castigating this bill. And Donald Trump and a lot of these Republicans have been saying, no, this is a good bill. Including Russ Vought, who is director of the Office of Management and Budget under Donald Trump. He's been calling BS on these folks that are saying, oh, no, this is not a good bill.
This is an incredible bill. It will lead to an incredible growth. It reduces, and let me be very clear, it reduces the deficit. When you have an honest assessment of what current law is, this is a reduction in deficits over 10 years, and it will lead to trillions of dollars of economic growth. The economic growth numbers that Congressman Harris is using is largely just a number that they came up with that they were comfortable with. We have done a rigorous economic analysis in which we believe that the average is much more like $4 trillion that will come as a result of just the regulatory provisions and just the tax provisions. So this is a great bill. It will lead to incredible economic growth that we're already seeing.
And a lot of people will say with the CBO. And part of what I understand is that when the CBO comes out and they say, oh, this is going to add $3.7 trillion to the deficit. One of the things that a lot of these folks have said in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, is that they don't add in all of those other factors. They don't add in the revenue generated from taking the shackles off of business. You know, part of what's in this bill is a lot of deregulation, and Donald Trump has been working on the deregulation. You know what happens when there's some deregulation, right? When the deregulation happens, that's when businesses, the shackles are off and they are able to do what they need to do to hire people, do the research, and make the investments, and that also will grow the economy. A lot of people calling. I want to say hello to this is Jesse in Idaho. Jesse, you're on Red Eye Radio. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Maria Romo has an excellent book out called The Cost. And in that book, she explains the growth of revenue. It isn't just a growth of revenue, it's a growth of wages for all people. And there have been numerous studies on this. So it's revenue growth, it's wage growth, which entitles everybody in the nation to have a better lifestyle, a better life. And when you have people like Chuck Schumer, who's a liar, a horrible liar, scaring people not to vote for this, Maria Bartiromo's book, The Cost, does an excellent job of explaining how good revenue growth and wage growth comes from this bill. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things, Jesse, you are so right about Chuck Schumer. You know, when the Democrats come out, and I'm glad you mentioned Chuck Schumer, because, and I think I had the audio yesterday, but, you know, he's out there saying that this bill is literally going to kill people. And when you say that he is confusing people, he's scaring the hell out of people, actually, Jesse. So you're right, because what the Democrats want to do is, there's two things the Democrats are trying to do. What the Democrats are trying to do is they are trying to, number one, cause confusion in this bill so that it will fail, because they want Donald Trump and the Republicans to have an embarrassment. They're also against what is in the bill. Please don't get me wrong. But they want Trump and the Republicans to be embarrassed. They also know that if this bill does not pass, then the Republicans will more than likely lose the majority in the House of Representatives. And that means that all progress on anything that Donald Trump and the Republicans wanted to get done will effectively stop. And that's a great point, Jesse. Thank you very much for the call. This is Corey in Pennsylvania on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Corey.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm all right. Go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to echo this, I guess, similar sentiment to one of your previous callers, about Rand Paul and the posse surrounding him. And I mean, I understand completely their concerns, but what it just seems to me like they are looking at tomorrow's snapshot and not looking at the long game and the benefits that the country's going to see as a result of enshrining a positive economic profile. I mean, that's essentially what's, trying to happen here. You can't fix the disaster that's sitting on the plate right now overnight. It's just physically not going to happen without causing a lot of chaos and problems that, nobody wants to experience. But it's just the policies in the bill are going to just improve the general economic foundation. And when you increase economic capacity as a whole, that is going to chew away at the debt faster than anything else that any of us could physically do as a one-off item.
Corey, you know what? I could not agree with you more. You are absolutely right. By the way, monitoring Chad Pergram, Fox News, and he says that Mike Johnson expects the House to approve the bill around 8:30 this morning. That is 8:30 Eastern time, of course. He says also from colleague Dan Scully, House Speaker Mike Johnson is trying to get a deal on the one big, beautiful bill. He says it was just a lot of patience and a lot of listening to everyone's concerns and making sure that their concerns were addressed, saying a lot of people had to take the time to thoroughly go through the Senate's changes to the bill, and that is fine. So that's what it sounds like. It sounds like that what they needed to do, they needed to just get everybody on the same page very quickly. This is Ray in Ohio. Let me get this on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Ray, thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning. I got two disparate items, but they're both effective in pointing out the issues. One of the hidden costs that nobody pays attention to is the legalization of marijuana, but especially the illegal immigrants that all have no driver's license, no education on how to drive. We got Haitians in Ohio that turn around and drive on the wrong side of the road because that's the way they do it in Haiti. So you turn around, you get into an accident with one of these people, you're the one that's eating it, and your rates are the ones that are going up.
Right.
The rates on insurance in Ohio versus Indiana are phenomenally different. Every one of those sanctuary cities is a different insurance rate for somebody that's got a house there. You're screwed. But the last thing that does matter, where Rand Paul really is correct, and the only person I've heard actually say anything about it was one-time comment by Laura Ingraham. A while ago, like a month or two ago, the United States went out and sold bonds to try and keep funding our federal debt. Nobody was buying. That's a hint. And that's why Rand Paul is correct, and a few others like Massey is saying, hey, boys, this really does matter. And if the dollar loses its reserve currency function around the world as a result of this, it's a real big, bad deal. And when everybody says, hey, I'm making money on gold, pay close attention, you dummy. You ain't making money on gold. You're losing money on the dollar.
And Ray, you were absolutely right. And one of the things, and I said this earlier, and people tune in and out all the time. One of the things I said earlier is two things or many things can be correct. Yes, this bill spends a lot of money. Yes, this bill may actually increase our debt and our deficit. But it can also be true that you've got a lot of people that are going to be making a lot more money back from their taxes, a lot more money into their pocket that will help to churn the economy. All of these things can be true. And Rand Paul, by the way, is somebody that I deeply respect. And so everybody on this bill has a very good point. Of course, the one big, beautiful bill. I do have a couple of more pieces of audio I'm going to play, including what House Speaker Mike Johnson had to say just moments ago. All of that and a whole lot more straight ahead. 866-90 Red Eye. My name is Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
@866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis in for Gary and Eric. They return next Sunday night, Monday morning, and we are live, just so you know, here on July 3rd. This is typically one of those days where a lot of radio shows run tape or whatever, but we are live and watching everything that is going on in Washington, D.C. And so I want to play you a piece of audio. This is Mike Johnson, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and he is talking about how he now does have the votes to get Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill passed.
We have an hour scheduled for debate, and depends on how long the Democrat leader's magic minute goes, but I suspect it won't drag on long. We'll be voting, I think, by early morning, and right when everybody's waking up to have their coffee, they'll have they'll have a big happy surprise.
There you go, big happy surprise, says House Speaker Mike Johnson. The super text line, which is something I'm using tonight, I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on WTN, and we have a text to the show line. So tonight only, because I knew that I'd have a lot of feedback with everything that's going on, 615-737-9986. If you want to text me, I'm reading it right now. 615-737-9986. Going to take some calls coming up as well. 3594 from the state of Missouri. These weenies have not learned DJT47 is always right.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
It's Red Eye Radio. It's 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. So apparently what's happening, and I'm speaking to my sources within the House of Representatives, hearing Chad Pergram as well from Fox News. So remember when we started this evening, we had a bunch of Republicans, a handful of holdouts, that they wouldn't even vote to get the debate started. And a big black eye, a big embarrassment for the Republican Party. But then, apparently, what's happened is they now came back. Because remember, everybody left. The Democrats went home. The Republicans went home. Everybody went home. And then the strong arming began with some of these holdouts that didn't even want to start the debate. Well, that is now passed. So the vote to begin the debate, that did pass 219 to 213. So now what's going on in Washington, D.C. is the debate on the big, beautiful bill has actually now begun. And Mike Johnson, and by the way, I'm just telling you that this is one of those mornings where you thought it was going to go one way. You thought that the one big, beautiful bill was not going to pass. I mean, I had people from Congress, people who work within Congress, they were telling me this thing is as close to DOA, as close to flatlining as you can possibly get. But here we are. And now it does look like there's going to be a vote in the next, 5 or 6 hours. Earlier, I was talking about how I was seeing, and people were saying about 8:30 in the morning Eastern time, which is 7:30 my time. And if they do the debate, and by the way, what they've done is they have actually accepted the Senate's version of the bill. Remember, it was supposed to, House passes their version, the Senate goes and they end up coming up with their own version, making some slight changes. Then it goes back to the House, and the House can either accept the bill as is, or they can make their own changes, and then ultimately everybody has to come together on one bill. The House of Representatives decided that they went ahead and they're just going to accept the Senate's version of the bill. And Donald Trump, he's been very active on the phones. House Speaker Mike Johnson has been very active as well. This is what he said just moments ago.
We have an hour scheduled for debate, and depends on how long the Democrat leader's magic minute goes. But I suspect it won't drag on long. We'll be voting, I think, by early morning, and right when everybody's waking up to have their coffee, they'll have watch your step. They'll have a big happy surprise.
So there you are. That is House Speaker Mike Johnson. So according to my sources, here's what happened. Because remember it was the Freedom Caucus essentially that was against this bill, and so you had a lot of people that came in, and this is kind of how the sausage is made. You had a lot of the representatives that came in, they cast their vote on whether or not the debate should begin. So they had all of those votes in the hopper, and then the Freedom Caucus came in, and they all voted in a block. And so they came in, they voted, and now they're talking about they're debating now, and the vote should take place here in the next few hours. So we'll have to see what happens. I mean, this is, if you're for the bill, great. If you're against the bill, you're probably not real happy. I want to take some of these calls. A lot of folks have been waiting for quite some time. This is Greg in Chicago on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Greg, how are you?
How are you, Mr. Mandis?
I'm good. Go ahead, sir.
I think I have a problem with this bill. I'm in your camp somewhat, but there are things here that really bother me. One is if you're not going to introduce spending and cutting how much government actually eats up of our money, that's a big problem to the voters that voted for Donald J. Trump and his agenda. And I think it will be a little bit of a problem at the midterm. He's got to clean that up. The other big problem I have in this is we have a lot of things in there about how people are getting aid if they're not actively working, things like that, the SALT tax, things like that, where we're being told that we need to vote for these things to keep these representatives in power so we can win a vote. I don't see why that would change with future bills down the road. You're still going to have to concede to them to get their votes anyways. Mm-hmm. And the biggest problem I have in all of this is, where are the voter ID law changes that are so necessary for our republic to continue? When are those going to be introduced? I've never seen government cut spending ever in my lifetime. And I'm not convinced that the next bill is going to cut spending. The tax cuts should bring in some more money, right? They should generate some more revenue, more people will work. The tariffs bring in money, and it goes directly to the Treasury to pay down the debt. I get that. But where is the actual spending cuts down the road, which is something we need to do as a federal government, as a democratic republic? What's the guarantees? And that's what I want to hear Chip Roy explain and some of the others. I'm not necessarily against them, right, because let's face it, this is a poison pill bill. That's the way I look at it. We're being held. I hate to use the word hostage, but there are things in here that if they don't pass, I told you so is going to happen. And that's my biggest problem.
Yeah.
We're basically being held by our ears and telling us to hold our noses while we vote for it, expecting roses in the spring next time around. I've never seen it. I don't believe it. And I guess the next time I see it will be the first time. What do you think, Dan?
Greg, you're right on a number of things. I would say, and I've been honest and upfront throughout the entire broadcast this morning, where I wanted more than one bill. I think that putting all of this stuff in one bill, this one massive bill, made it extremely complicated. And you're right. I did some checking, and it doesn't look like voter ID laws are in this bill. So you're right. As far as I can tell, there's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of great things for the American people, but you're right about being held hostage. If you want more money, if you want more of your tax dollars back, well, then we've got to, put all of this other stuff in the bill. But remember, though, there's a lot of good things in this bill, things that the American people voted for when Donald Trump was voted into office. Although voter ID laws not apparently in this bill, but we do have a lot of the immigration related issues that Donald Trump ran on in the last election. And he won in large part based on those immigration issues. So there's a lot in this bill. Also remember that if the Republicans are able to get a stronger majority in the House of Representatives in 2026, they're able to keep the House in the midterm elections, then they can make adjustments to this. And here, can I just tell you my big plan? My big plan is we keep the House in 2026. We keep the Senate as well in 2026. Let's hope so. But then you hopefully keep the presidency in 2028 and all of the things that we want, because we continue to have the majorities in the Senate and also in the House of Representatives. And if we have in the White House a J.D. Vance or a Marco Rubio or perhaps a Ron DeSantis, those are my big three, then we can just continue down the road of doing all of the things that we as conservatives want to do, whether we're talking about voter ID laws, whether we're talking about 2A, whether we're talking about, cutting spending, again, more and more tax cuts, whatever we can do, deregulation, all of these things. If the Democrats ultimately end up getting the House of Representatives, as I've said a number of different times, if the Democrats end up getting the House, then all we can look forward to for the last 2 years of Donald Trump's administration is impeachment. And nobody wants that. And Greg, I appreciate the call. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE. This is, let's see here. This is Dan in Washington. Camas? Is that Camas, Washington? Oh, hold on. We got a new system here. Hold on. Hey, Dan, go ahead. Start over.
Yeah, well, my thing on this thing is I've been a Donald Trump supporter, but listen, you got 2 credit cards that are maxed out. You don't get a third one to think you can dig yourself out of the hole.
You know what? And I listen, Dan, I agree with you on that. The only thing that I would push back on is the fact that the Republicans, at least it feels like they have a plan. Now, I know that there's some people that are out there that are laughing at what I just said, but it does feel like they have a plan. And that plan is, and you're right. I had said earlier in the show, and I think somebody else said it too, one of the phone callers said that the fact that they're raising the debt ceiling shows you that they're not really taking it very seriously of cutting the debt, wanting to cut the debt if they're raising the debt ceiling. And that makes all the sense in the world. You are absolutely right on that point. But I would also say that for the American people, we talk about the debt ceiling. We talk about, the debt and the deficit and all of these things. And these are all very serious issues. They really are. But I also believe that the American people, they hear these things and it doesn't really relate to them. Do you know what relates to the American people? What relates to the American people is the fact that they're barely scraping by, or the fact that they had to max out their credit cards because of, Joe Biden's really high inflation and stuff was so expensive, so they had to use their credit cards to buy groceries. The tax cuts, the extending the tax cuts, making them permanent, and raising the business tax breaks to encourage investing and hiring. Also, the higher standard deduction for everyone. All the things that we've always been talking about. No taxes on overtime. No tax on tips. The child tax credits going up to $2,200 per child. All of these things will help your economy and my economy. And so that's part of the thing that I think President Trump has been trying to say is we understand that the cuts that people want are not going to be here, but realize that when we grow the economy, we will be able to make the economy stronger because there will be more money coming into the economy, and we'll be able to pay down, perhaps, we'll be able to pay down that debt. So I think that what Donald Trump is trying to do is, in this bill, it's more relatable, if you will, because what it's doing is it is addressing the needs and the concerns of the American people. Auto loan interest deduction for cars made in America. Again, and I can't say this enough, business tax breaks to encourage investing and hiring. All of these things are really good things for the American people. But here's the deal. I'm not pushing back on what some of you folks are like Dan. I'm not pushing back on what Dan is saying. He's got a great point. I've got a lot of concerns about this. But if it doesn't pass, then in my opinion, what's going to happen is the Democrats will end up getting the House of Representatives, and then we absolutely will lose the majority in the House. And Craig is in Texas on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Craig, go ahead.
Yes, sir. A couple of segments ago, you said that one of the things you liked about the bill was that it would give you the child tax credit. My question is, why is the child tax credit even in the bill? And two, why do you feel you're entitled to it?
Well, one of the things that I would say is and just so we're clear, it's not going to help me, but my kids are grown. But what I would say is that Republicans are doing whatever they can to show that they are pro-family. I know what you're saying, though. What you're saying is that it is the responsibility of parents to be able to raise their own children. Why should the taxpayer subsidize parenting? Is that kind of where you're going?
Yes, sir. And on top of it, I got to pay school taxes on children I've never had to go to school. And then when I go to a school board meeting, I get thrown out of my ear because they don't like the questions I'm asking, trying to justify where my tax dollars are going. So I'm trying to understand why there's even a child tax credit to begin with. If you want to have kids, great. Have a dozen of them. I'm proud for you. But don't ask me to raise them, and don't ask me to pay for them.
All right, and Craig, I gotta let you go because I'm going to address this on the other side, but we've got to take a real quick break here on Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. We are monitoring all the developments in Washington, D.C. Got a lot of folks that want to talk about what is going on with the big, beautiful bill as well. And tonight only, I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Dan Mandis, and we have a text line for my local station. So tonight only, I've actually activated that for the network. So our phone lines are full, but if you want to comment, I'm reading it right now. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. 0013 says our president will turn all this around. I agree.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. I've got a couple of things to clean up. First of all, if you're just joining us, we're on a bunch of stations, and some stations start taking the program 1 hour in, 2 hour in, 2 hours in, 3 hours in. So this is hour number 3. And I want to clean up one thing, because I promised a guy that I would comment on something that he said. If you're, again, just joining us, the good news or bad news depends on your perspective. But the Republicans have finally been able to begin debate on President Trump's big, beautiful bill. So, but it's been a whole big, long process to get here in the last 3 hours. And so we'll continue that debate. I got a lot of people that want to talk about this. But a guy called up and he was really upset because part of what is in the big, beautiful bill is child tax credits. And they are going to go up from, I think it's $2,000 to $2,200 per child. And this particular listener, I forget where he was from, but he was really angry about that. He was like, why should there be child tax credits? Why in the world should I pay for other people's kids? I'm already paying property taxes for, schools that my kids don't go to, and so on and so forth. And the only thing that I would say to that, and I'm not going to be able to change his mind, but what I would say to that, his basic, opinion was that if you're having kids, then you should be able to afford them. And I do understand that. But what I would also say is that, especially if you're a Republican, isn't the Republican Party, isn't part of what we stand for is family values. And so it is my belief that, and I say this often during my radio show here in Nashville, Tennessee, that I believe that the family is the bedrock of society. I truly believe that, and I don't want to get religious. I don't want to do that, but God and family, that is to me the bedrock of society. So anything that we can do to help support families, I think that is something that we need to do. So number one, you are supporting families. You are encouraging families to have children, and I believe that if we can make the world a better place by supporting families and supporting parents being able to raise their children, and maybe having a parent stay home, if these tax credits, if they can help that, then I think that is a good thing. I mean, I'm not going to change anybody's mind. If you don't feel like we should be, doling out these tax credits, well, okay, that's fine. But I believe that it is better for the world. I believe it is literally better for the world if we support families. If we can support, and this is just me talking, don't get mad, but if we can support a parent staying home with those children so that you can raise them up correctly, even homeschooling. If we can have these child tax credits help parents homeschool their children, I think that is great, because you and I both know that there is all kinds of indoctrination that is going on in the schools as well. So that's just my 2 cents on why I believe that child tax credits is a good thing. I also think that it is a good thing that the Republican Party, remember, it used to be the Democrat Party where they always said, oh, we're the pro-family, the Democrats. We're the pro-family party. We're the pro-family party. Not anymore. Not anymore. The zealots on the left, with their lust and their thirst for abortion, I think the Republican Party, through a number of different measures, has become the pro-family party. And I absolutely love that. A couple of other things real quickly. I want to play you a couple of pieces of audio from Chad Pergram. And he is a reporter for Fox News, and he's been reporting from the House floor where all of this is taking place. And he talked about what happened, because, if you listen to the first hour of this broadcast, really the first 30 minutes of this broadcast, the big, beautiful bill was dead. I mean, it was flatlining. But we also talked about the fact that Donald Trump he's always been involved, but he was involved. He was talking to people on the phone. You did have House Speaker Mike Johnson. He was speaking to a lot of people as well. Obviously, you also had Steve Scalise, the majority whip. He is out there trying to whip people into shape as well. You had a handful of Republicans who didn't even want to vote to have the debate. I mean, how ununified are you if you can't even vote to debate the issue? They all came together in a very quickly. When all of this was going down, all of a sudden Chad Pergram comes out and tweets out and he says, the Republicans have been able to go in, they've been able to take a vote, and they have voted to begin the debate. the House Freedom Caucus came in, and apparently they all voted as a block, and that did put the Republicans over the finish line. This is Chad Pergram.
But here's what's going on. You might ask what the guarantees were to get this across the finish line. You had meetings with the House Speaker and the holdouts for quite a while here. House Speaker Mike Johnson had indicated that President Trump was very involved in these calls. I confirmed that there was a phone call around 1 o'clock with some of the holdouts here and House Speaker Mike Johnson. And I'm just going to read you some of the quotes here from House Speaker Mike Johnson. He says, quote, "There was a lot of patience and listening to everyone's concerns and making sure that their concerns were addressed. A lot of people had to take the time to thoroughly go through the Senate's changes to our bill, and that's fine." And on President Trump, he says, "I've talked to him multiple times today, tonight, this morning. He was directly engaged, wanting the play-by-play. And what this also means is they're probably going to make the deadline of July 4th. President Trump had said he wanted this bill on his desk by the 4th of July. And House Speaker Mike Johnson said, quote, "We're going to beat it by a day."
Yep, and that is Chad Pergram. And he also had more to say on exactly how this all went down.
This is the Senate's bill that they're going to accept. People are going to make their closing arguments. They're going to make their final points about this. Democrats will rail about how bad they think the bill is, what they think is going to happen with, food assistance and health care and green energy tax credits. You're going to have, Republicans extol the virtues of the bill. They're going to argue that it, reduces the deficit. That's something that some people are debating right now. And depending on the framework and the baseline you use, that's something that they have to look at. So that's an issue. I would also look at, just to see if there's any fiery speeches. People are a little bit worn out here at this late hour. But I do think that from a purely political standpoint here, Republicans are probably feeling a little bit triumphant now that they were able to deliver.
Yeah, and Donald Trump, of course, just to give you an idea of of the pressure that he was putting on Republicans. He said, and this was on Truth Social, largest tax cuts in history and a booming economy versus the biggest tax increase in history and a failed economy. What are the Republicans waiting for? What are you trying to prove? MAGA, he says, is not happy, and it is costing you votes. And he also says, for Republicans, this should be an easy vote, an easy yes vote. The president saying this is ridiculous. You know what's going to be interesting? And by the way, you can also follow me on Twitter. Tammy is one of my favorite Twitter followers. And she said this, follow me at Dan Mandis Show. She said, you said, me, Dan, you said you fear if the bill does not get passed, the Dems will regain the House. She says, I fear the Democrats will regain the House, especially if the $3 trillion bill passes. Most of the positive aspects of this bill will not be felt by voters before next year's election. So, and I'd have to look and see when some of these things do take effect. But, here's the thing. What I'm really looking for is all of these folks, and I don't know, I'd be willing to bet that Thomas Massie is still going to be a no. But some of these others that were holding out, they have been like Chip Roy, for example. I'll use him as an example because I think it's going to be fascinating. How do they spin out of this? How do they spin out of all of these comments that they've been making all this time about the bill? I'm gonna play you this audio from Chip Roy.
This bill, in my opinion, will raise the deficits in order to get some tax cuts that we want, some tax cuts that we don't necessarily need, some reforms that are good, but some reforms that we're leaving on the table. That's the bill. You say, well, is that a compromise? In my opinion, right now, it's not a compromise worth taking because the deficits are too high and we can't afford that anymore.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If this is the Senate's bill, and I just played you the audio from Chad Pergram, if this is the Senate's bill, well, then not much has changed. So they spent all of this time, some of these Republicans, they spent a lot of time chastising this bill. They just don't like it. So then how are they going to turn around now and say, well, I decided that I would go ahead and support the bill? Well, dude, what changed? Please tell us what changed to justify all of the drama. Because, again, if it was the Senate's bill that came over, and this is the same thing they've been talking about for, several days now, well, then why did we have to go through all of this drama? Did you just simply want an audience with the president? I would be curious to know, and maybe we'll find out at some point. There's a lot of folks that want to talk about this. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-90-RED-EYE. Let's say hello to, this is Rich in Chicago on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Rich, go ahead.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Hello. Oh, I'm living the life. Living the life. I was just calling. I'm just wondering if maybe it's this time of morning brings out all the happy people that are nitpicking. I don't like that. I don't want to pay for people's kids. I don't, you can't please 100% of the people 100% of the time.
Right.
And I'll take a Trump loss over a Democrat win any day of the week. So.
Yeah, and you're right, Rich. And here's the thing, and I'm not trying to advocate for the bill. I do believe that there's a lot of things in this bill that are good. There's some things that I don't like, but you hit it right on the head, is that if the Republicans couldn't pass this bill and our taxes went up, because it would mean that the Trump tax cuts from 2017 would expire, people's taxes would go up. And you know darn right well that there'd be a lot more people screaming about that if the Republicans let that happen. So, yeah, no, you're right, Rich, and I do appreciate the call. This is Lee in Rhode Island on Red Eye Radio. Lee, go ahead. Lee, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Les. I'm sorry. Les, go ahead. We've got a new phone system here, folks, so I'm trying to get used to it. Les, go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. There's a lot of talk about tax cuts in the bill, but the tax cuts were in 2017, and that's when we got the economic growth. Extending them is not going to increase economic growth. Taking them out would depress economic growth, but we're not going to get increased economic growth. And $5 trillion increase in the debt ceiling is not trivial, and it's not nitpicking.
Well, Les, here's what I will say. They are increasing the standard deductions for everyone across the board. The child tax credits are going from $2,000 to $2,200. They are extending the tax cuts as well. They are making them permanent. They are giving businesses new tax breaks to encourage investing and hiring. Also, don't forget the auto loan interest deduction for cars made in America. There's a lot of really good things in here. I understand what you're saying. Also, don't forget, I'm not a big fan of this one. The Trump accounts where newborn kids get $1,000. I'm not a big fan of that one. Also, don't forget, by the way, Les, no taxes on tips and no taxes on overtime. So there is a lot of new in here, Les.
Well, yeah, some of it I agree with. Some of it I don't necessarily agree with. But I don't think the economic growth is going to be that much improved with these other little tax increases or tax cuts.
Well, here's what I will say, Les. I'm going to respectfully disagree, and I'm going to listen to people like Scott Bessent and Donald Trump. I voted for Donald Trump, and I voted for him to do these things. I voted for him to get the Trump tax cuts extended. I voted for him to get them to be made permanent. We voted for these things, and so I think the president is doing what he needs to do. And if they say that ultimately the revenue that the government is going to make over time will ultimately help bring down our debt and deficit, okay. But I'm here to tell you that, as a number of callers have said, this does beat the alternative. It does beat the alternative, in my opinion. But Victor is going to disagree with me. Victor, you're in Kansas City. Hey, how are you, Victor?
I'm doing fine. And no, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean,
okay,
I will
good.
start off with saying I do think, and I did call my senators, and I called my state or my rep, Sam Graves, and I said it was too damn big and it's not so beautiful. It's good looking at best. I'll give you that. Now, the thing is, it is the best that we can get at this moment, and it is moving in the right direction. And so I will take the Reagan quote, you can't make the perfect the enemy of the good. Just like you, I supported Donald Trump. I would have loved to gone, pedal to the metal, get everything that we promised, yada, yada, yada. But you know what? 70% of what we asked for, he's done. He's a man of his word. And the deals that he's made with these people, I don't even know if I want to call them deals, but the assurances that he's made that, okay, if this is what's important to you, then this is what we can bring up. In fact, I was a little upset that, there's no tax on Social Security in this. But being the sly little person that he is, he could be saving that for the midterms to ensure the senior citizen vote.
Well, and Victor, I got to run. I've got something to say about that, but I'm up against a hard break. Thanks for calling in. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. Compliance, Safety, Accountability, or CSA, is the FMCSA Safety, Compliance, and Enforcement Program. Its goal is to hold motor carriers and drivers accountable for highway safety and to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities on our roads. CSA does this by assessing the safety performance of motor carriers and drivers based on data collected during roadside inspections, crash reports, and FMCSA investigations. Based on the data that is compiled, motor carriers are assigned a score. The carrier is then grouped with other carriers who have had a similar number of safety events. Carrier scores within the group are then ranked to determine intervention priority. Low scores are better, so carriers with the highest scores are those that are most likely to be targeted for intervention by the FMCSA. Interventions range in severity and may include warning letters, roadside, off-site, or on-site inspections, civil penalties, or operation out-of-service orders. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90 Red Eye, 866-907-3339. I'm chuckling because I'm listening to the Democrats, and what's happening is right now they are debating the big beautiful bill. Everybody's got like a minute, whatever. So they're getting through the process. But can I just say that the fear mongering and the really just asinine things that these Democrats are saying make me realize that it is the right thing to do to pass this bill. I know that there's a lot of folks that are not happy about this, and I totally understand. I totally get it. But when you hear some of this audio that I'm going to play for you, I think you'll understand that we could not possibly give the House of Representatives back to these people.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. You can always follow me on Twitter, X, at Dan Mandis Show. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That runs 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. And it's been quite the show. I've been able to get some audio. The Senate, I should say the House, they're debating now the big, beautiful bill. They were able to get over all of the procedural hurdles. And now, because the Democrats, remember that when it looked like the Republicans were not going to be able to even get the debate started, the Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, they were laughing at the Republicans. They were just joyful because they thought that they were going to have the midterm elections in the bag. And so they thought that it was a great thing. They thought that the disunity of the Republican Party was their key to getting the House of Representatives back, because remember, the only thing that they want is to oppose Donald Trump in anything that he does, including trying to impeach the president, which you know darn right well that's something that they would want to do. So now that the Republicans were able to clear that legislative hurdle, now the Democrats, they are absolutely crapping in their pants. Listen to this.
I rise in strong opposition and could never vote for this big, bad, inhumane, and ugly bill because it will wreck health care delivery, takes food from hungry children,
Lord,
sentence seniors to early death,
just stop it,
eliminate jobs and destabilize our economy just to give the super rich and wealthy more influence, more power, more wealth. It takes from the poor, from the disabled, from the sick, from the hungry, and gives to the wealthy.
So again, can we just be honest? These are all talking points. Now, by the way, can I ask a question? When these, millions of people don't die, what are the Democrats going to say? I mean, by the way, let's also not forget, these are the same people that have been screaming at the top of their lungs for years and years and decades that we were just a nanosecond away from the entire earth imploding into a ring of fire or gigantic oceans because of climate change. It never happened. And it's not going to happen. But I'm playing this audio to you, friends, to remind you the kind of people that we have got to keep at bay in the House of Representatives.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I flew overnight through thunderstorms and flash flood warnings to be here to stand up for my district this morning because Republicans refuse to stand up for theirs. I've been in Congress for over 20 years, and I've never seen such cowardice from my colleagues across the aisle. Time and time again, we see Republicans fold like cheap lawn chairs. Okay. Senator Murkowski said it was a bad bill. Then why the hell would you vote for it? I'm here to stand up against a bill that kicks 17 million Americans off of their health care. A bill that cuts school lunches and food assistance to children who go to bed hungry every night. A bill that includes billions of dollars for ICE, an already bloated agency that has been upending due process and racially profiling people in my district.
All right. So, number one of the things that they keep saying is it's gonna kick a bunch of Americans off of their Medicare. Actually, it's going to kick off a bunch of illegal aliens off of Medicare. That's number one. Number two, ICE needs all the money that they can get because Joe Biden, your party, Representative Sanchez, your party let in all of these illegal aliens. So, yeah, ICE needs some funding. Yes, as a matter of fact, they do. You know why? Because the American people voted for Trump, and he talked about and he campaigned on the largest deportation in history. So, the hits just keep on coming. And this is what we as a party need to try to avoid is these absolute whack jobs getting back in power. This is Vernon. He's calling from Denver, Colorado on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Vernon. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Hey, no problem. Thanks for taking my call. This seems to me like where the people on the right especially are allowing the Democrats to kind of do what they love to do. They love to find specific items within the bill that they can use and blow out of proportion and lose sight of the big picture. And it's losing sight of the big picture that has the resistance on the right to passing it because of the people who are afraid of MAGA not supporting them or thinking of them as having overpromised and underdelivered. And it seems to me like if you think about this bill as being like the engines of the Titanic going at full speed. The debt is the Titanic, and this bill is designed to gear down the Titanic slowly, so that it can make we can make a left-hand turn and eventually stabilize the debt, and then turn around and go in the other direction. But it takes time to do that and space to do that. And what Trump was saying about increasing the debt ceiling is to allow for the space for the momentum of the Titanic, which is going to still keep going forward as you cut the engines, but allow for the slow turning of the engine of the Titanic.
Yeah.
And this is what Magna doesn't seem to want to understand. They want to just slam on the brakes of the Titanic like it's the General Lee and just all of a sudden be facing 180 degrees the other way.
Well, and here's what I say, Vernon, and you are making a lot of sense. And one of the things that Mike Johnson said, because you just said, and it's so true, we can't turn this thing around like it's the General Lee. I mean, this is going to take time. And that plays right into what I was saying before, which is, okay, so let's say that the Republicans, the conservatives, are unable to pass this bill, the great, big, beautiful bill, right? So let's say that they couldn't pass it. Then they're seen in the House of Representatives as a complete and utter failure. They would have failed President Trump, who is, in case you missed the story that I said yesterday, that I presented to you yesterday, he is incredibly popular within the Republican Party. They would have lost the midterms. I'm just telling you. If you lose the midterms, as I've said 1,000 times now, you're sunk. So this has to be done in stages. All right, so it passes. It's not perfect, understandably so. But then you've got still control of the House of Representatives. You've still got the Senate, hopefully. Then you have the presidential election in 2028. Hopefully we get J.D. Vance or Ted Cruz or Ron DeSantis in there. And we can just continue the conservative momentum. Mike Johnson said yesterday, I played this audio bite for you where he said, listen, we're not done.
You can do a reconciliation budget for each fiscal year. So the plan is to do one in the fall for the FY26 budget year. And then we can also squeeze in a third one for FY27 before this Congress is up. At the same time, we're going to be passing rescissions packages from the White House to save more money and spending less in appropriations. We will get the government back to fiscal sanity, and we are the party to do it.
Right. And you know what? Here's the deal. You know what I would say? I would say that, number one, we didn't get here $37 trillion. We didn't get here by this just being a Democrat issue. Both sides have contributed to this disaster. The Republicans, I believe that they truly do have a plan. I do. I do believe that all of these tax cuts and everything that Trump is doing with the deregulation and the no tax on tips and overtime and all that stuff, I believe that that is a good plan to try to get our economy moving in the right direction. More money for the American people means they're going to be able to spend more. That means more money going back to the Treasury. Also, you deregulate the businesses. You give the businesses more tax breaks. That is going to encourage investing. That is going to encourage hiring as well. I mean, again, these are all great things. As far as the senior citizens, allowing senior citizens a tax deduction worth about $6,000 or so. It depends on which chamber we're ultimately talking about. But the senior citizens, I know that President Trump talked about trying to get them no tax on Social Security. I believe the parliamentarian would not allow that. So they came up with a plan so that senior citizens would get that up to $6,000 tax deduction. So there is a plan here. And I believe that this is, at the very least, it's a better plan than the Democrats have, because we all know what the Democrats' plan is. Number one, it is anything that opposes Donald Trump. And number two, it is trying to impeach the president and destroy any momentum that Donald Trump and the Republicans have. Let's say hello to Will. He's calling from Colorado on Red Eye Radio. There we go. Go ahead, Will. Will, go ahead. All right, we'll go ahead and put Will on hold and say hello to Helen in Rapid City, South Dakota. Helen, there we go. All right, Helen, go ahead.
Well, it's really a pleasure to have you on this program. I've been a fan of yours for years. But one of the things that I dislike about Trump is when he lies. But the thing about the immigrants that come into this country, are the ones that came in through Biden, are they considered illegal?
So that is a very good question, because you have people that will argue that they are legal, and I'm going to put the word legal in air quotes, okay? Because I consider them illegal. The reason I consider them illegal is because they came in and they had no vetting whatsoever, and Biden just flew them in, or they, catch and release. They came in and they may have a piece of paper that says, yeah, you got to show up in 3 years for your hearing. So to me, correct, they are illegal. They may not fit into that exact definition of legal because Biden was operating within a system that would allow them to not be called illegal because they came in with a visa. The president flew them in through the various programs. So whether you call them legal or illegal, to me, it doesn't matter. I would say that a lot of these people that are here, they're going to stay here. If they don't have their papers, then we can deport them. So that's all part of what needs to be worked out, because we have, number one, a lot of illegal alien criminals that we've got to deal with. That's number one. We have a lot of people that are here on expired visas that we also need to deal with as well. But as far as where all those people are that came in on like Biden visas, for example, I think they've still got to figure that out. Did you want to say one more thing, Helen?
Well, I don't like them to be called criminals if they came in through Biden. They came in thinking that they would be able to settle in the United States, not right, to go through all the rigmarole or be called villains or whatever. And for the Republicans that haven't voted tonight, some people take longer than others. I'm a Democrat, but I'm for the Republicans on this. So,
okay. Well, that's interesting.
I don't know. It is. I care about. It's too bad they can't reach across the hall and shake hands or give each other a hug.
Helen, I'm going to say this in the most respectful way possible. I'm from the South, and we have the saying, it's bless your heart. I'm going to say bless your heart, Helen. Those days are long gone. As far as talking about criminal illegal aliens, so just so we're clear, when I say violent criminal illegal aliens, I'm talking about the gang members and all that kind of stuff. I do make a distinction between the illegal aliens that are gang members and, they assault and rape and murder and drug dealers and all that. They are violent criminal illegal aliens. There are other illegal aliens that are here illegally that I also do believe need to be deported. The president needs to figure out a way to do that, but he also needs to figure out a way to deal with those people that came here through the Biden administration, and they have some type of visa. But I appreciate the call, Helen, and hope you call again. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Follow me on X, at Dan Mandis Show. We'll be right back.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. My name is Dan Mandis. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. If you'd like to check that out, you certainly can. The website is 997WTN.com. Please, please, please follow me on the show socials on X and Facebook at Dan Mandis Show. Got a lot more straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.